Hey everybody, welcome back to the 82nd episode of Taps and Patience, the podcast that apparently just records all of its intros twice now. I am AJ with Audacity Micro here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. Was this intro better, Harrison?
Yes, that was better. Okay. What was going on in that last one, just out of curiosity?
So, similar to the technical difficulty we had last week, earlier today I moved my computer a little bit. And then right as we started the podcast, I moved my monitor. Like I just moved it forwards a little bit. And earlier when I moved my computer, the HDMI cord got further away from the monitor. And the cord was apparently stretched basically to its limits. And then I moved the monitor and it unplugged the cable all the way. And then I was trying to figure out what was happening. And then I went to move my computer back. And when I went to move my computer back, I accidentally hit the power button on my computer when I was moving it. But I was able to run back to the computer and tell it to stop in time. And yeah, so that was the chaos that happened we might be able to post it on Patreon. Our Patreon members might get to enjoy that if the recording worked. Otherwise, it's just lost to the ages.
Okay. Well, I think the moral of the story is don't touch your computer.
Yeah. During a podcast.
Yeah, especially during podcast. So, good. Now, how's your week been? Busy, good, slow, fast, normal?
So, for those of you who are not Harrison or I recording this live, today is Thursday. We normally record on Monday, so we've been pushed back a little bit. The first part of my week was relatively chill. The later half of my week, basically starting yesterday and moving forwards, is very packed. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I was front loaded like Monday, Tuesday was going to be my busy days this week. And then the rest of the week was going to be pretty slow. And that all went out the window on like, I don't know if I remember if it was Monday or Tuesday at this point, but basically, yeah, but that is no longer the case.
Yeah. Did something go wrong?
Yes. A lot of things went wrong and a lot of things went right.
Okay.
So we had a Xometry job that we took, and it was a repeat job. And that's what I was working on Monday and Tuesday. And in the middle of that, they apparently forgot some of their parts and ordered more or something. And because we got the same job that we were running again, so it was basically a double reorder. And so we went ahead and accepted that and ran more than we were planning, which was awesome. Kind of a happy accident. And so there was that. And then this would have been Friday, last Friday. I forgot about this. Or was it Monday? Okay. I don't know if it was Monday or Friday last week. Friday last week, Monday this week. But I got a PO from my biggest customer.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted it rushed. They wanted it by Wednesday this week, but I can't get material till tomorrow. So tomorrow's going to be a busy day. It's going to be my biggest stainless steel part to date.
And in size, not quantity.
In size. It's going to be over 50 pounds of stainless in one part that I got to machine down to who knows what weight. Because it's like an 80% removal. And so it's like 2 inches thick by 18 inches long by like 5 or 6 inches wide. So it's going to be a big old boy. And they wanted that rushed by Wednesday. And I was like, we called around, and there was one customer we found locally, but the only other place we could find before that we found that guy was Online Metals. And guess how expensive it was on Online Metals?
$694.
$10,000.
Wait, how big did you say this piece was?
Now you're listening.
Yeah.
I want to say 2 inches thick, but now that I'm saying it, it might be 3 inches thick.
Okay.
It's 2 to 3 inches thick, 18 inches long, and like 6 inches wide. And
okay, yeah, it's still just like Online Metals was like, we don't actually want to sell this.
Well, I'm making 2 of them,
Hmm.
and there's also 2 other parts that are smaller but made out of the same material. And so it came out to where I needed about a 6-foot stick, and so that's what a 6-foot stick cost.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it was a stick or if it was a plate that they were cutting up, but it was heavy, and it was because it's 50 pounds a part of material. That's not that, and that's only using 18 inches of it. So yeah, it's going to be massive. I might need some help from Weston getting it like
Yeah.
positioned in the machine without breaking my back. But anyways, so we got that coming up tomorrow, and I'm super stressed about that because they want it as soon as possible. And then they sent me some more rush order parts that we got done. And one of those parts was super stressful because it had 2 bearings with a spacer in between them, to like two places that you need to seat bearings, and it's a mill part, and you need to machine one side, and you can't get the other side bearing unless you had like a key seat cutter maybe. But they're holding tents, and I can't check it if I'm doing it with the key seat cutter, and so you have to do one side and then flip it over and then align them back up and do the other one. And so those had a plus or minus 3/10 or 4/10 call out. And then there was 2 other holes that had some tenths call out. Anyways, long story short, it was a really complicated part. Also out of some big, thick aluminum, 2-inch thick, and I think it was like a 2-inch thick, 8 inches long by 6 inches wide piece of material for that one. And anyways, I ended up scrapping 2 of them, and I only needed to do 1. So like I was lucky I had enough material. But I found out my probe was loose in my machine. And so I was
The tip had come loose?
No, the body.
Oh.
Like
okay.
The body and the holder.
Yeah.
And so it was out by like 7 thou or 5 thou. It was loose enough that like you could get a measurement of like if I was, and this is what was really messing me up, was I took a measurement of a bore and I got that I was like 1/10 under or 2/10 under, and I was like, okay. And then I reran the feature, and then it like opened up by 4 thou running the same toolpath, and I was like, okay, something's wrong with my probe or something. And so I had to go get a bunch of other measuring equipment, and so I had like 3 different things of measuring equipment plus my machine, and I was comparing the results from all 3, trying to figure out which one was the right, because I was trying to hold tenths on it.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I found out that my probe was loose, and after I'd scrapped 2 other parts, and on the 3rd one it came out perfect. And so anyways, that was super stressful. And then today, sorry, I just keep going. I'm just I'm just on a roll right now. So today I was running some plastic parts that were Delrin, that were 24 inches long, about 2 inches thick. I've done a lot of 2-inch thick stuff here recently, or 1.5 to 2 inch. The material's 2 inches thick. The part's like 1.5 to 1.75 inches. Anyways, 24 by 2 inches thick material by 6 inches wide, or no, that one was 5 inches wide. Anyways, the part bowed, and I've been fighting that. And thankfully, I had enough thickness in my material that I can fix it. But I've been fighting that all afternoon, and I still have to do a little bit of work when I go in the morning because the job ships tomorrow. So anyways, that's been my week, and it's been very stressful and chaotic, and went from I'm going to have an easy second half of the week that I can maybe go out and try to meet some new customers, to the dams have busted loose and I'm trying to swim.
While we were talking, I just realized I ordered the wrong material for the job that I have due Monday.
Oh no.
So, and this is the one time I had them pre-cut the material, and I think I just flipped some dimensions in my head, and the material's not going to be long enough. So I got to call Alro tomorrow and be like, hopefully before they cut the material.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know, it's extra $150 or something. But
do you talk to over the phone, or do you talk through
yes.
email? I was gonna say, if you had an email, you could send something out now that said, "Hey, don't do this," or
I mean, I could still, but I think they cut it today because I told him I was in a hurry and I asked him to have it ready in the morning. So,
oh man,
yeah, this is what I did. So this is actually, I think probably the largest part I will have made on this machine, but the part itself is 8 by 6.25 inches.
that is huge for you.
By, well, one of them's like 3/4, one of them's 1/2 inch thick. And so the most accessible size of bar was 1 inch by 8 inch. And when I was ordering it, I got confused, and my part is 8 inches wide. And so I was like, oh, 8 inches wide. So I just need the 6.25 inches. But basically, long story short, I have zero room to face the walls on either side. I might get lucky. It might be like 20 thou too wide because it's aluminum extrusion, but I should probably order more.
Well, you say that. I've done a lot of parts that are 8 inches wide using 8-inch wide extrusion material, and it comes in about 20 thou oversized, and I can clean up both sides because otherwise I have to go up to 10-inch is the next size up. And every single time I've ordered this material, it's come in oversized by at least 20 thou in that dimension. And so
I'll bring a pair of calipers to Alro with me. And
yeah.
Actually, I don't have 8-inch calipers.
Oh,
I'll have to bring a tape measure and hope.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got the largest pair of calipers we got is a 24-inch. And because it always seems like every time I'm like, okay, we need to get a new set of calipers because we're going to do a larger part, I get a larger part. And like this most recent one I did was 24 inches. And so actually it was 24 and so I can't measure it with those calipers. I have to measure it in the machine, which I've already done. I should have wrote that value down if I didn't. But anyways.
Yeah, my shop rule is 6 inches by 4 inches by 1.25 inches. And that means that all of my parts will fit within 6-inch calipers. So
except for these.
Yeah, I broke my rule. They're just plates with a bunch of grooves and stuff on the top. And I'll probably just use super glue work holding. So it'll be fine. Assuming I get the right material. But I did break a shop rule. This is one of those where Xometry was like, does anybody want to take this for $600? And I just like threw out a random big number, and they were like, deal. And so now I have to do it. So I think they were originally asking like 600, and I think I got $1,500. So
oh wow, I have
and like I said, it's only $120 worth of aluminum.
I have yet to have that happen where like they have a price and I put in like 3 times the amount and they like go for it. But
I mean, it doesn't happen most of the time. It's like 1 in 20.
I don't think I've ever had that happen. But maybe we're just underbidding.
That's probably part of it. Part of it, I think, is I just take really dumb parts.
That could be too.
This one is actually pretty reasonable, though. I assume it's like some sort of mold, maybe like for polyurethane or something. It's got a ton of like squiggles and grooves, and I'd actually love to know what it is because it's a super interesting looking part.
Yeah.
But it's like a fairly complicated part, but I'm pretty sure it'll be like 3D adaptive, contour the outside, flat, with maybe a couple different tools. And that should be pretty much all it takes.
No, that won't be bad.
So
hopefully, famous last words. So it seems like The easy parts, I feel like I get burned on so much more than the challenging parts.
Yeah, those do sometimes come back to bite you. Speaking of which, I have one that may end up that way. This seems like it should be an easy job, but I'm kind of worried because I'm getting like they offered an unreasonable amount of money for it. It is a job that it is taking nylon screws. They gave you the McMaster part number,
Hmm.
and I'm drilling a hole through them. So it's 100 screws. 100 screws on the McMaster cost, I think it was like $6, and they're paying me like $400 to drill 100 holes. I feel like it should be easy. I feel like I'm pretty sure I could knock this out in like 45 minutes.
Yeah, like all you need to do is drill a hole, tap a hole, thread it in, and
Oh, you
and
mean for the fixture? Yeah.
yeah, like that's literally everything you need to do right there.
I don't like locating parts with tapped holes. So I was my plan is just to use my flux vise and just bore a bunch of holes that are the size of the outside diameter of the screw and just clamp them in. Plus, then I don't have to sit there and screw in 100 screws and unscrew. I can probably get 10 in a row in my flux vise and do
Ooh,
10 at a time.
word of caution.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. Yeah, that's a good point.
You can do four. You can do both sides of your vise on the front and back jaw,
Yeah.
but I would not do any more than that.
They are nylon screws, so they might be a little bit compliant.
Maybe, but every time I've tried to do that many types of parts, like anytime I go above one part in each side of the vise, the odds of me throwing a part goes up exponentially with the amount of parts I add
That is
beyond that.
valid. I am just drilling, so there's no lateral forces.
Yeah, but if you spin a drill, you could break it or damage your fixture or any number of things. Now, granted, if everything's cheap, if it's a cheap drill bit and a cheap part, and you're not worried about that, go for it. But I don't recommend it if you're not willing to break a few end mills or tools. So
That is a valid point. I
one of the things I have done though, if I've wanted to run large quantities like that, is I'll clamp them all, and then I'll go through and I'll like hit them with like an air gun or something and try to blow out anything that's loose, and just know that whenever it's drilling or going down and doing whatever it's doing, that those that have been loosed have been knocked out already, and that it'll only hit the ones that are clamped strong enough to actually work.
yeah, I might do some zero clearance soft jaws, which
That
is what?
I was gonna say the only other thing that I would suggest is if you can get some of that like tape or something that where you can have half of the hole in one side of the jaw, and then you can have some sort of compliant material,
That's
more
true.
more than aluminum, but some sort of material that you can press in against it to hold it.
Yeah, I could. That's true. I could do like a 3D printed insert because I have TPU
Yeah.
that I could use. It has to be softer than nylon because the screws I'm machining are nylon.
Hmm. That could work. I would
The
I
other
would
funny
still
thing about
go ahead.
I was gonna say the other funny thing about this job is it has a VQC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a virtual quality check. It's like, guys, I'm drilling holes in screws. Like, anyway, I don't know. It's a very weird job. That's probably actually why it paid more than it really should have, is because it's for the VQC. But
Yeah.
considering there's exactly one dimension on there, it shouldn't be that bad.
Did I get the right drill?
I got several because it's a relatively tight hole. It's like plus or minus 4. So I got a couple drills,
Hmm.
but plus or minus 4 in plastic for people
Yeah.
listening.
I was gonna say plastic. I've been doing a decent amount of plastic here recently, and I understand why people hate plastic.
Dude, I love plastic.
Yes, and with small parts plastic is one thing. Large
Yeah,
parts plastic is a
it's true.
whole nother animal.
Yeah, large
And
parts plastic doesn't sound fun.
no, 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 no.
I
I am
also
learning
don't
that
do
the hard
like
way.
I don't do nylon or HDPE or any of the stuff that you probably do. I'm doing like Ultim and PSU and other fun ones. I love
Yeah.
Ultim. It's super stable. It does not warp nearly as much as other stuff.
One of my worst Xometry parts I ever did was for a phone company that rhymes with Maple. And and the part was a big plate, and it had inserts that got pushed into it, and that thing potato chipped so
Mm.
bad. And like we got so many nasty grams from Xometry after that part went through, and that's the only one we've had like that. But what was funny is when we checked it at the shop, everything looked flat. But when they sent back the photos of the part, it's like like an eighth inch or a quarter inch. Like it's like, ooh, it did not look like that when it left, and so it like warped in transit or something. Like I'm sure it had some warp when we had it, but it wasn't enough that we noticed it that much. But whenever they laid it down and it was there, I was like, man, if it looked like that, I wouldn't have sent it out. But yeah,
Well, here's a couple fun things about plastic. One, it moves over time. So you
mm-hmm.
can machine it and it'll be in spec one day, and then you can come and check it the next day and it'll be out.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do like high tolerance plastic stuff, I like to let it rest overnight before doing my final inspection,
Yeah,
which feels so strange. It's like sourdough where you got to let it like, I don't know. Anyway, but the other thing is, yeah, like box trucks get hot and then the plastic moves
mm-hmm.
and you're just kind of at the mercies of the FedEx if they leave it out in the sun.
Yeah.
For
So
some really delicate stuff I've done, I have shipped it in like a 3D printed like mating part so that if it moved, it wouldn't have room to move. It would be stuck with the 3D printed part. But it sounds like that's too big for that.
yeah, this was a big sheet. I mean, it was bigger than our printer like can print.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, regardless to say, all the problems I've ever had with plastics have been on parts that have been bigger than probably 4x4x4.
Yeah.
That's really the range where they start becoming a real pain in the butt. Anyway, small plastic parts, love them. Large plastic parts, hate them. At least right now. I mean, the proper way to have machined these parts that we're struggling with right now, looking back in hindsight, would have been to rough machine the whole part and leave like 60 to 100 thou on all the sides, let it rest, and then come back and finish machine everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never had to do that before. And so now we know. And so that job will increase accordingly if we were to do it again on Xometry. Because we way blew past our time and budget on this one. So, but yeah, that's what happens, and that's part of learning and growing. And as much as I have stressed and maybe turned a few hairs white over this process, we're a better machinist for it. And me and Weston kind of had that conversation today. It's like, we're not like, and you kind of fall in this group, I imagine as well. We're not the ones that have ever like worked at a machine shop and been trained properly by anyone. This is all us figuring it out as we go day to day. And so the plus side to that is you don't have any ingrained limiters
Mm-hmm.
from people being in like, you can't do it that way, you can't do it that way, you can't do it that way. Because I have a local shop here that I've been trying to help out, and their guys do not want to accept any kind of change. Like, I tried to show them CAM, and like I sat down with one of their guys, and it's like, okay, here's how you would program this part, and I showed him all this, and the guy's like, this is dumb. Who would use this? Because he's used to programming on his
Yeah.
machine, and he's like, because like I was showing him, high feed or high efficiency milling strategies, and he's like, "Why's he got all those lines? That's so inefficient and dumb." I'm like, "I'm not programming those lines. I'm just telling it to do an adaptive. Like this takes 0% of my time to program. Like he's used to programming all those lines, so like the more lines he sees, he goes, "Oh man, that's inefficient." He tries to write a program that can fit on a sticky note.
Yep.
And so, anyways, so we don't have that, but on the flip side of that, the downside to that is we have to figure everything out the hard way. The only way that we really learned is either YouTube or the School of Hard Knocks, and right now I'm getting my education.
Yep. Same. These parts I just finished up. There were 2 different parts that were out of Ultim, 8 pieces each. The first one, relatively simple in terms of like design and cam, but it had some like plus or minus 1 features, which again in plastic is kind of a pain. But that one went basically perfectly. I had 0 issues with that. I think I did. Did I do soft jaws? Yeah, I did super glue for op 1 and then soft jaws for. No, I didn't. I did super glue for both ops, and I made a press fit fixture for it, and then I held it in with super glue. So, and that worked super well.
Yeah, I think I saw your Instagram story on the fixture.
That's right. I posted the fixture. Yeah.
That was awesome. I was going to comment on that because that was amazing. That was really good.
And then the second one ended up being 8 ops to get done. I think when I originally took it on Xometry, I thought it was going to be 6 ops. And then I think I just like missed a feature that made it 7 ops. And then I forgot an op earlier. Like I forgot a feature. It was like one that I intentionally left out of op 1 because I wanted to leave more material in the part. And I was going to hit it in op 2, but then I forgot to program it for op 2 because I thought I hit it in op 1. And so I got halfway through the parts and went, wait a second, there's supposed to be a hole here. So I had to put it back in for op 8. But
so
it would have been a good 5-axis part.
Yeah, sounds like it. How many of those parts did you do?
8.
8 of. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So 64 setups. Well, 64 part swaps, not setups.
Yeah.
8
and
setups.
You only have. Did you have 1 fixture or 2?
So the op 1 was in a vise. Op 2 was soft jaws in my flux vise. And then op 3 through 8, I made a custom little jig, I guess would be the term. Basically, my original plan was to use a collet block with like an expanding mandrel. And so that I could hit, the 4 sides. But that ended up not working out, mostly because I was having a hard time indexing things. And so then plan B was to use soft jaws for everything, and that didn't work out because there wasn't a good way to index things. And so then I decided to just kind of like basically recreate the soft jaw geometry that I had on the end of a square block. And that square block, I was able to index like 90 degrees in my vise and hit, the 4 sides. But I also had a cut to do at, I think it was 31.8 degrees. And I didn't have a good way of aligning that block at 31.8 degrees. So when I originally designed it, I designed in a angled like ledge. And so I was able to sit on that ledge in my vise. And then I also added some like probing features so I could find my work coordinate system. And that ended up working shockingly well. I didn't scrap a single part or even screw up one of my setup parts for that whole thing. So
I guess my question was more along the lines of when you got one set up in the fixture, you ran through all that part all the way. You didn't have you weren't swapping parts in and out. Like you didn't have 2 of these or 3 of these. You were, once you got it onto the fixture. Go ahead.
I did all the op 1s, then all the op 2s, then all the op 3s.
Gotcha.
Which is dangerous because then I could have, scrapped them all at op 7 or whatever. But I I scrapped one during Op 1 and one during Op 2, and I used those as setup parts throughout the rest of them. So I figured if I could run 2 that came out good and with intolerance, then the other ones are probably fine. And it was. I didn't scrap any of my actual parts after that.
That's good.
So
That's good.
it was a little bit tedious, but it ended up going fairly well. It took a long time. I had scheduled 2 days for this job, and it ended up taking me like 3.5.
Now, did you set up automated probing in this, or did you manually probe them in each time?
So what I do most of the time now is I just kind of get close, and then the first step in my program is a probing cycle that is marked as optional so that I can just get rid of it with a block delete.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of the times if I'm doing this kind of stuff, unless it's just like probing a vise or, anything more complicated than just like sticking in a vise, I set my work coordinate system close and then run the probing automatically from Fusion.
So how do you use the block delete on in Fusion to cancel out your probing?
You just, how you can like select toolpaths and mark them as suppressed?
Yes.
There's another toolpath that says, or another little checkbox right next to suppress that says optional. You just mark them as optional.
Oh,
and
I've never looked at that.
That'll give you a block delete in the program.
I'll have to look at that next time.
So yeah,
that's super cool.
I don't think it worked on Tormach. I don't think they did block delete. So you probably learned without that ability. But now, at least my Haas post supports it. So
yeah, I think there is that, but I think there was that checkbox underneath, but I've never paid attention to it. So like, interesting. Or I saw that it said optional and was like, okay, optional what?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what does that mean? Why?
This is an optional feature.
Okay. I have one problem with block delete, and it's that every single time I go to press block delete, I press option stop. And then I wonder why the block delete's not working. And so then I press the block delete button, and then it option stops. And then I can never remember if block delete being on or off skips the code.
So on your controller, does it have a little bubble that comes on that says these features are turned on or off?
It'll just say block delete on or block delete off.
Okay, but so it'll just be a little text, and then does that disappear
if it's off?
But if it's on, it'll stay on the screen.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because on the newer
stop.
on the newer controllers on the bottom of the machine, if you turn on like single block, option stop, like all that stuff, like they'll light up on the screen. I didn't know if on the older controllers, if it just like came up with a flag and was like turned it on or turned it off, and like you didn't know if it was actually still on or still off. It'd be like, oh my goodness, that would be stressful if that was the case.
It is labeled, yes.
Okay, good.
Do I remember if turning on block delete skips it or not? No, that is going to take a while more to sink into my brain, apparently. But
gotcha. Yeah. And the Tormach does, at least in their most recent update, I think have the option or the block delete option.
Did they add that? Okay.
I think they added that.
Cool.
So
I know for a while it was like a zoom speed add-on.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we might have sold our Tormach.
Woohoo.
So I won't know for sure till tomorrow, but we've had a guy who's been following our eBay listing, and he's called and emailed like 3 or 4 times, and he was saying that he might be buying it tomorrow, whenever towards the end of it.
Nice.
But he's kind of holding out to see what it went up to. So.
Oh, is it like being bidden on right now?
Yeah. So by the time this post goes live, it'll be done. But yeah, it's currently live on eBay, and we had a minimum reserve, and as long as that's met, it'll be gone. I haven't looked at it.
What's it at?
Let me look, because I honestly don't know. Yeah. Right now, it's nowhere near.
Yeah, it'll go up 90% in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, so it's we've got almost exactly 23 hours and 50. Well, we got 23 hours and 15 minutes from right now.
Cool.
So, but
Speaking
the
of,
the hardest thing about selling a machine like this is all of the extras, because you want
yes,
you want a good price for it, and people are like, why would I pay that for a Tormach? And it's like, you don't understand how many options we have on this thing.
yeah,
So, anyways, go
because
ahead.
you can easily have like $10,000 worth of tool holders.
Yeah, we added it all up, and we have over $45,000 in what we're selling. Now, it's
Yeah.
not worth that now, and we know that, but I think it's worth more than your average Tormach that's for sale on there. So, anyways, go ahead. What were you saying before that?
I was doing a cheeky segue to Patreon members.
Ooh, okay.
So, by the way, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/taps and patience. All of our members get episodes early, even when we record them late. And you get the ability to ask us questions that we address on the podcast. I have a question. It's
Ooh,
actually not from
yes.
a Patreon member, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
just pretend it's a Patreon member.
Okay.
I would like to give a specific thanks to Jamie from JSpec Engineering, Chris Zajic from Zajic Precision, EJ at Nocturnal Welding, Simon, Chris at Thought Bomb Design, and Jake Brownson. And Scott at Design the Everything. All of those
Woohoo.
people are in the $10 a month tier, which gives you the privilege of having your name butchered on air. There's also a $4 a month tier. Basically, a dollar a show was the theory behind that. And all tiers get all tiers get the early access to stuff and things. There's some little niche tiers as you go up, but even at $4 a month, you get all the goodies. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, we also are in like normal podcast players. If you're watching this in a normal podcast player, you can find us on YouTube.
You said you had a question as well?
So I did have a question. And this one was, I think, kind of more specifically aimed at me, but we can kind of go broader
Okay.
for you. So it was someone on Instagram, I'll look up their name right now, was asking about how in the past I had mentioned that, like, I have this whole ADHD thing, and sometimes it makes working kind of hard, and sometimes I don't get stuff done. And, I've taken some measures to help improve my ability to focus and work with that. And he was just kind of asking like how that was going. And the irony is, as I'm doing this right now, I'm trying to do something else. So he just kind of wanted a update. Okay, so it was Sebastian. That's who it was. He just has his name and not a business name. So I'm just going to call him by his first name, Sebastian. So it's definitely better than it was. Like, I'm kind of learning how to, be able to focus. A big thing I've done, and I kind of slowly keep getting more and more extreme, is just don't carry my phone around with me when I'm in the shop. There was a while where, originally I would just have it with me all the time. And, sometimes when I get distracted by something, it might take me half an hour to, get back focusing again. And, I get a phone call or a text or an Instagram notification or whatever far more than every half an hour, which basically means some days if I weren't careful, I would just get nothing done.
Mm-hmm.
I originally just started like throwing my phone onto the table, but I still had it connected to my headphones. And so I would still hear phone calls. Then I would have to walk in. Like, if I got a phone call, I'd be listening to like Audible or something. I'd get a phone call. I'd get angry at whoever called me. I'd walk into the other room. I would decline the call. I would walk back out and then be distracted or whatever. I then started listening to audio from one of my computers, and that works well, except for the incredibly annoying tendency of like these headphones where if I'm like, watching a YouTube video or listening to an audiobook on a computer and I get a phone call on my phone, that will override whatever I'm listening to. And so then I'll still have to go back into the other room and angrily turn off the phone. And so now I just like either put my phone in like airplane mode and just like not look at it or talk to it at all, or I just leave it in the house. So, and that has helped because now I don't get those random interruptions. But I literally get like 12 spam calls a day, and it's dumb. I have a whole list here that I'm looking at. One of the things I found a lot is a lot of the like lean stuff is about like basically reducing startup costs. And that really helps me just like be able to get started on a task. Because like sometimes there's stuff that I know that I should do, and it's just very hard for me to like get up and get moving on it, even though I know it's important. And this is sometimes why I wait until the last minute on deadlines, even though I know I shouldn't. But if it's like get up, 4 buttons, press go, get started like making chips, it makes it a lot easier. And so a lot of the lean stuff is around eliminating setup and startup times. And by like doing some of those lean things, just by like, I don't know, keeping my tools organized and everything having a place, and like it reduces a lot of my friction to get started.
Yeah.
And strangely, recording videos, like doing YouTube videos when I'm making parts, actually I think helps me get stuff done faster, because even though I'm doing more things, I'm like thinking about the project from the viewer's point of view. Like I'm thinking about it almost from the storytelling point of view, and it actually really helps kind of clarify my steps. It's because like I get to look at the camera and be like, okay, this happened, and now we're going to do this because of that. And it kind of helps me like linearize problems. So I actually get things done faster when I'm recording videos, which is weird, but true.
Well, recording videos, you don't have another person in the shop you can bounce ideas off. So that puts you in the same headspace as if someone was there.
That's true.
So I can definitely see that. Because if you can't get out of your own way sometimes without talking to someone else, and if you don't have someone else there to talk to, then the next best thing is to try to record something, and then it kind of is like you can look at it from an outside perspective and be that other person that you need for yourself almost. Just thinking on ADHD in general and just how to be more efficient. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and one thing I've noticed with myself is, and for ADHD people in general, is anything that doesn't have an immediate effect on the business or on what I'm doing gets dropped. And so anything that has consequences today becomes important. And that's kind of the biggest problem I have kind of in that whole ADHD space is I might have 13 different things that I need to be working on. And some of those things might be out 2 weeks, but there's stuff that I really need to get done today. And it's hard to do those things when there's other things that need to get done today that have an immediate effect that I won't need in 2 weeks, but I might need tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so that's the stuff that, like, reflecting back is what bites me in the butt more than anything else, is stuff that I need to do today for 2 weeks from now or a week from now or 5 days from now or whatever,
Yeah.
like, for example, like if I get a job and I need to order material, I'm going to need that material when that job shows up. But if I didn't have someone like Weston around who's much better about getting all that kind of stuff done, there'd be a lot of times I'd probably come to a job and be like, where's that material? Did I order it? I forgot. And, and so for me, that's the area I really struggle in, is anything that doesn't have an immediate effect today, basically.
I think one of the interesting things about like ADHD and like methods for working with it and working around it, and like I did a lot of research into this, I don't know, a couple months ago or whatever, when I realized that it was kind of a big part of my problem. But a lot of like the things that work for people with ADHD actually make a lot of sense for people without it. Like it's most of the time, it just emphasizes the need for good systems that are good for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. kind of why I think lean helps, both. Like, it helps normal people, but it also helps people who have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a thought about this the other day.
What you got?
How many people do you know that like started off as engineers and then like it ended up not being interesting enough for them, and then they went to being machinists? How many of those people are like a little bit ADHD? I think machinists are just engineers with ADHD. That is
It
my
very,
theory.
it very well could be. I mean, taking a step back, I couldn't tell you how many people I know who didn't end up going down the engineering path, but my graduating class size was half the size it was from my freshman year to my senior year. And I know most of them drop out year 2 to 3, somewhere in that range. And I think it's just because there's not enough hands-on. That's the thing. Like, that's the reason I switched from engineering to machining, was because I couldn't sit in front of a computer all day. I'd go crazy. I gotta move. Like, we both kind of have this whole rocking, twisting motion
Yes.
going, and like, I think that's just a sign of that whole, like, you gotta be in motion. Like, if you sit still, you'll go crazy, and that applies to business and life and any available spare second I have, apparently, because I'm doing something. If I'm awake, I am not sitting still. I'm in motion. I am doing something. Because if I have to sit still and not do something for 5 seconds, I'm gonna go crazy. So, and I think that's just a characteristic of it having some form of ADHD, and it could just be our generation too. Some of that, but I don't know. I don't know how much of it is true ADHD and how much of it is being plugged into so many different things all the time that without it you don't know how to function.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm slowly unplugging from things more. Though I have realized there is a direct correlation between how much I get done and how good my audiobook is, or if it's like a longer YouTube video or something. If I don't have something that is as good to listen to, I get sidetracked way more, and I'm more likely to go like either just not be able to get anything done or end up doing something that I shouldn't be doing at that time.
Have you noticed that anytime you have a job that is like super stressful and you struggle through hard, that the next couple days after that, everything else just flows through smoothly after you've solved the problem? Like, for whatever reason, because of how much you struggled on this end, like, you're so focused on everything else that everything else going forward is just like, you can't make a bad part and everything just flows super smoothly.
I do not have this experience, no.
Oh, okay.
So what happens for me, and this has gotten me in trouble many times. So like yesterday, for example, I was working on this hard part. I spent kind of all day bashing my head against it,
Hmm.
and then today rolled around, and I was just like, I have no ability to force myself to focus on this anymore. And even though I probably only had 4 hours of work, it took me like all day and then some to push myself to get the last like easy steps. The last couple operations are just like were just like you know some simple grooves and pockets on the side of a cylinder that
Hmm.
I think the runtime for them was probably 12 seconds. Um, but I don't know, like it's just kind of hard to push through that. Like I used all of my ability to focus on the previous day, and today I was just like struggle busing.
I I have noticed, and I guess it's not on everything, but 90% of the time when I'm struggling with something, there is something wrong in my links to going from a block of material to a finished
Hmm.
part. And every single time that I think it's maybe the machine or this or that, like, I'll usually boil it down to the weakest link in that chain. And once I found it and fixed it, in those scenarios, I don't know if it's just a euphoric, I finally found the broken link and was able to repair it, but like I have like a short high where it seems like all of my parts are just flying through, and I can't make a bad one for a short period of time. It seems like, or they're like the best parts I've ever made. Like, for example, when I got my probe fixed, and it didn't last long. But when I got my probe fixed, and I made that part last night, that was a rush part order. This morning, when I came in and made my next part, it came out perfect. Like within everything that I could measure was within tenths of what it was supposed to be. And this was not a tight tolerance part. This was a fairly simple part in the grand scheme of things. It did have some tapped holes and some weird locations that I had to do some fixturing with the 5-axis to get to, but it just came off perfect. And then the next parts were my plastic pieces of
where things went downhill.
yes. But that part right afterwards, like it was I programmed it today, I programmed it this morning, and it ran beautifully. It was I think 3 or 4 ops, and like it came off, and like the stars just aligned and everything was great, and it was just like today's going to be a great day. And that's how it usually goes when I have one of these sessions like I did yesterday. And I got a double dose today because as soon as I'm saying all this, I had the plastic parts from. Anyways, yes, I had the really bad plastic parts, and I'm still fighting those, and I'm hoping to finish those up tomorrow. And then I have my big stainless steel material coming in tomorrow, and I'm hoping that by fighting my probe and the material warping, I can use both of those lessons in this upcoming part and not scrap it. So,
are you for your plastic part? Is it like op 1 and a vise, op 2 and soft jaws?
op 1 and 2 vices, op 2 and 2 vices. One jaw is a soft jaw to hold a weird feature. The others are all hard because it's like a square. So it's like one edge is completely flat on the back edge, and then it has one edge on the other side that is flat for about the distance of one vise, and then the other side has some weird features. And so I just made one soft jaw, and the rest is on parallels and pressing against flats.
And I
So
assume it's
fine.
warping upward, like in Z.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is one part warped one way and the other part warped the opposite. So one was convex and the other was concave. And so it was just the material that we got. I got the pieces of material from the same thing, but I'm guessing I just flipped one of them 180.
Yeah.
And so there's just some stresses in the material that just caused it to potato chip.
What material is it?
Delrin.
Delrin.
Which is supposed to be, according to online, one of the most stable materials. So,
not in my experience.
One of the most stable plastics.
Yeah, so. Still not in my experience. I mean, I suppose it's better than, I don't know, nylon or something, but
yeah,
acrylic.
HDPE I hear is the worst, or UHW. Yes. Both of those, which I've done parts on.
I haven't cut UHMW in a long time.
So stringy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember.
Which, by the way, what do you use to deburr plastic parts, by the way?
So, I have a couple things. I have a ruby stone that sometimes works. Mm-hmm. I don't think that would work on a softer plastic, though. I think that's only for like Ultim. The number one thing I use, though, is I bought a set of scalpels off Amazon. Oh. And a fresh scalpel blade does a really good job. You have to be careful because it's easy to dig into the parts.
Yeah. You should look up, there was a ceramic deburring tool.
I've seen those.
Oh. You can't dig into your part and it leaves just the nicest deburring edge. Oh, I love it. Now, the softer the material, it doesn't work as good, but like Ultim, Delrin, anything that has a little bit of resistance to it cuts like butter. It doesn't dig into the part. It leaves like a perfect edge. Absolutely love it. Favorite thing. 100% recommend.
I am out of deburring blades, so I need to buy some more.
I'll see if I can find a link for the one that we got and send it to you, but it was 100% highly recommended for deburring plastic.
So is it sharp? Is it not sharp?
No. It's a boxed edge, and so you use the corners and it cuts really well. I don't know how, but it like you can grab onto it and You might, if you
Yeah.
slid it across your hand, it might cut, but it's not naturally sharp.
Does it like leave it? Like, does it make a chip? Does it make a curl?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It just doesn't dig into the part. Because it's like, because you're coming in at like a 90
Yeah.
degree edge, it'll cut a corner, but it's like it naturally, once it gets to a certain depth, just stops.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so I don't know what about the geometry makes it work, but I know I'm a believer. So I love it.
But I don't know. I do as much deburring in the machine as I can.
Yeah.
The exception is if I'm like salami slicing something.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, sometimes when you use a chamfer tool, or most of the time I just use a ball mill in plastic, it still leaves like a secondary burr. And for those, I just use a scalpel blade and just kind of like press it flat against the part and go along so it doesn't dig in, and that does a good job.
Yep.
And
I've done that a lot, and it works great.
I got like 100 blades and 3 handles for like $8 on Amazon. They're better than X-Acto knives. I really like the scalpel handles.
I don't know if I've had an actual scalpel handle. Just the X-Acto blades.
If I remember, which I probably won't, I'll put a thing in the description.
Some of the, like, I'll use like those blades that are like the ones that you can break off that are like really long. That way I can hold it across a big area and then push it through and keep it flat.
I've used those too. Those are too big for most of what I do, but the scalpel blades are sharper and there's a lot more choices in like edge geometry. The set I have came with like 4 different designs. There's like a big kind of swoopy one. There's like a traditional X-Acto one. There's like a little swoopy one, and then one that's like kind of.
Yeah. Well, what else you got? Or is that about it?
Oh, I officially signed the contract to do some fusion classes.
Ooh,
so
nice.
I'll say the company's name now. It's Next Gen Solutions. They're a fusion reseller and like Autodesk partner. I think they do all the Autodesk products, but specifically, I'm going to be doing a training course for them that they will give to all their customers.
Nice.
And there's the potential for some future work, maybe me doing trainings like of their customers for them, like as a contractor, and hopefully some more advanced classes. This first one's like baby's first part, basically. Just intro to 3D or to 3-axis milling, and then we'll slowly get more advanced from there. But
good deal.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
It'll be like a quarter of my income for the next couple months. So
yeah, I got some parts from a big company that I'm really hoping I can get some more work from. But we'll see. We'll see how these parts turn out. I signed an NDA, or I'd say more.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see how it goes. Yeah, that's about all I got.
Working hard in a little machine shop, tapping threads and turning metals non-stop. Every day a challenge we face. With our tax patience, we'll ace this race. Greasy hands and sparks flying high, machines humming, the sound never dies.
That is very true. The sound does never die in a machine shop.
That is true.
I just remembered this, but
we're
our rotary
focus.
I know. It'll be quick. My rotary screw compressor has a maintenance alarm on it for so many hours. So it was buzzing today, and we had to run around the shop, figure out what was going to blow up.
I'm jealous. I'm still on a piston compressor, and it's so loud.
Yeah. Anyways, so guys, thanks for hanging out with us for this podcast. And, we got a lot going on, and we're both pretty tired this week because it's just so much going on. But we love the opportunity to kind of come together, talk, and share our experience with you guys. So thanks for hanging out with us. And this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro. And we'll catch you next time.